you ready?
Ready.
Yep. Call the meeting to order. Call the roll. Trustee Healy.
Here.
Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Milani.
Here.
Trustee Campus.
Here.
Trustee Reardon.
Here.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pekow.
Here.
Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First agenda item is approval of the January 6, 2025 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of January 6, 2025.
Second.
Call the roll. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Campus.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Pekow.
Aye.
Are there any non-scheduled citizens and visitors for agenda-specific public comment? Anyone here to talk? Okay. Next item is Founders of Orland Park Residential Plan Development.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Campus.
regarding case number 2023-0309, also known as Founders of Orland Park Residential Plan Development, I move to remand the case back to the Plan Commission for reconsideration.
Second.
Are there any questions or, well, I guess I'll start with, did the petitioners want to speak? Because they didn't speak for the agenda-specific items, but did they want to speak?
Yeah, the petitioners have a presentation for the board.
What's that?
The petitioners do have a presentation for the board.
Yeah, you can, but you want to, so,
Yeah, so the Plan Commission did vote to approve the plan development, but they did not approve the requested relief for the density.
Correct.
So obviously, both of those things can't happen. So we had given you some choices, one of which it sounds like is on the table right now, and the petitioner would like an opportunity to present their case.
okay, so, all right.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Chuck with the law firm Rosenov and Whitaker here on behalf of Bridge Street Properties. With me today, I have John McHale of Bridge Street Properties, Todd Clevin of Lennar Homes, and Mike Mayer, civil engineer. Bridge Street Properties is the owner of the subject property that we're discussing, and Lennar will ultimately be developing the homes. A little bit of background on Lennar. Lennar was founded in 1954 and is currently the nation's second largest U.S. builder. Here's a list of Lennar's current Chicagoland locations, which includes nearby suburbs of Plainfield, Joliet, and Manhattan. Lennar is very excited for the opportunity to provide yet another successful community in the Chicagoland area, and more specifically here in Orland Park. Subject property is approximately 15 acres east of Wolf Road and south of 159th Street. It's always nice to start with a little bit of background. A little bit of history for context. So the property to the north of the site was annexed to Orland Park in January of 1994, along with the property immediately west of the site. Generally, the annexation agreement governing these two properties contemplated large-scale residential development, specifically as it relates to the property immediately north and identified as sub-area Sayers 1. In the annexation agreement, high-density residential apartments and townhomes were contemplated. Since the annexation approval 20 years ago, these properties failed to fully develop. Fast forward to 2009, the property was annexed along with 27 other properties. Due to the nature that it was annexed, there was no annexation agreement governing this subject property. In the village, property is automatically zoned E1 estate residential upon annexation if no zoning designation is requested. Accordingly, the property has an E1 zoning designation today, but that designation is not reflective of the village's intended land use and goals for the property. So to this end, we look to the comprehensive plan for guidance as to the village's goals and objectives for future land use and development here in town. Specifically, the comp plan notes how single-family detached homes dominate the housing market, and there is a need for a variety of housing types to address the needs of all different types of home buyers, specifically the aging demographic. The village's future land use map identifies the future land use of the property as mixed residential under R4 zoning. Specifically, appropriate land uses under this designation are attached single-family row homes and townhomes. To this end, we're seeking to rezone the property to R4 pursuant to the guidance provided under the comprehensive plan. Under the R4 zoning, we're proposing a 90-unit townhome community. The entrance to the community would be provided off of Wolf Road. Required parking for the development is 225 spaces. Technically, we will be providing 427 spaces, which far exceed the parking requirement. If we take it a step further to remove the driveway parking from that calculation, our total parking is still above the requirement at 247 spaces. Petitioner is proposing sidewalks and walking paths throughout the community. The community will be heavily landscaped with a strong focus on creating open space areas for passive recreational opportunities. In fact, the project is required to maintain 20% open space, and we will well exceed that at 51%. As seen here, over 50% of the site will be reserved for open spaces. These open spaces include 3 passive park areas totaling about 3 acres comprised of walking paths, seating areas, and a scenic overlook with wooded arbor over the seating areas. With respect to landscaping, the whole site will be heavily landscaped with a mix of evergreen shade trees, ornamental trees, and deciduous and evergreen shrubs. The entrance to the community will feature a landscape median and substantial landscaping of large ornamental and evergreen trees in order to provide a buffer from Wolf Road to building number 1 and provide a beautiful entrance appearance with a monument sign. In terms of foundation landscaping, each townhome building will be heavily landscaped with evergreen trees, ornamental trees, perennials, deciduous, and evergreen shrubs. In addition, there will be canopy trees planted at each building. Lastly, here's an exhibit of the extensive landscaping planned around the perimeter of the community. This will be comprised of evergreens and shade trees in order to ensure appropriate buffering and to properly delineate the property lines. With regards to setbacks, we're providing a minimum 35 feet to the perimeter property lines, in some cases 75 feet to the property line, a minimum of 59 feet between the buildings, and in some cases nearly 200 feet between the buildings. In fact, our setbacks are in excess of the code requirements, thus providing more than adequate separation and avoiding overcrowding on the site. In addition, the development is well under the maximum lot coverage of 60%. So we're ensuring that, again, there's going to be more usable green space as opposed to building area on the property. Moving on to architecture. We're proposing 3-story townhomes. The townhomes will have an at-grade entrance, a garage, and a flex room. The second floor will be your kitchen area and your living room, and then your third floor are your bedrooms. The plan features 2 different elevations, the Ellicott and the Edenton. The townhomes will range from 2,027 square feet to 2,222 square feet. All units will have 3 beds, 2.5 baths, and a 2-car garage. This is actually the same product that was built at Naperville Crossing over in South Naperville. This was very well received. The architecture is predominantly brick with varying roof lines, white trim, bump outs, and large windows in order to allow natural light into the units. We've worked very closely with staff in order to enhance the side elevation adjacent to the roadways. This is even enhanced from what we built at Naperville Crossing, and we think is aligned with the high-quality housing that people have come to expect here in Orland Park. These are some interior photos of the townhomes. Generally, the homes have an open space concept, offer several upgrades for additional features. All homes will have modern appliances, designs, and features. As we mentioned before, the comprehensive plan notes the need for diversity of housing in Orland Park. Townhomes truly meet the needs of all different types of people. So you have homebuyers ranging from young professionals to persons in transitions to empty nesters. So we feel the proposed development is an excellent opportunity to fill those housing gaps. As noted in the staff report, we are requesting a variance from the density requirement this evening. That said, density itself is not a bad thing. The restrictions are usually in place in order to ensure that public facilities are not overwhelmed. So I'm going to walk through a bunch of different public facilities and explain how this will not overwhelm those. First, we'll talk about the school district. School impact. Here's a student generation table that I developed pursuant to the Orland Park Code. Using the code's population generation table, we expect a total of 17 school-age children from ages K to 12 to be generated from the development. The students would go to the schools identified here on this slide. We're projecting 9 elementary students, which equates to a 1.8% increase from current enrollment. 4 junior high students, which equates to a 0.3% increase at each junior high school respectively, and then 4 high school students, which equates to a 0.1% increase in student population. So we can reasonably conclude that the impact on the schools is minimal. The same generation table is provided to understand the total number of people generated by this development. Based upon that, we have a requirement to provide 1.49 acres of parks or cash in lieu thereof to offset the impact of the development for the Parks Department. The petitioner is incorporating 51% of open space into this plan. That does include three different park sites totaling about 3 acres. This exceeds the park requirement under the code. However, since the parks will be privately owned and maintained by the HOA, the petitioner will provide a cash contribution to the Parks Department. With this, we're not only providing an abundant amount of passive recreational opportunities for the residents, but we'll also be providing those funds to the Orland Park Recreation and Parks Department to support the other parks in town. We can reasonably conclude here that there's no negative impact on the park facilities. With respect to traffic, Wolf Road sees anywhere from 1,263 vehicles during the morning peak hour and 1,008 vehicles during the evening peak hour at this very location. The project is expected to generate an additional 33 trips onto Wolf Road in the morning peak hours and 20 trips onto Wolf Road during the evening peak hours. At a mere 2% increase, these trips are drops in a bucket compared to the thousands of cars that Wolf Road sees per day. Wolf Road certainly has the capacity to handle this minimal increase and will still operate at an acceptable level of service under fully developed conditions. Even so, the petitioner is proposing to install a southbound left turn lane and northbound right turn lane on Wolf Road in order to ensure that there will be no negative impact on the operation of traffic. So accordingly, the project will not overwhelm the traffic or the local roads. Next, I want to talk about the stormwater design. The community will be adequately served by utilities and will meet the stormwater detention requirements. That said, it's difficult to meet the density requirement on a net calculation basis on a smaller site like this one. So this site is 15 acres, and 3 of those acres accounts for stormwater detention. The required stormwater design results in a larger and more shallow basin than we would otherwise typically design. With this, our detention area ends up eating up much more buildable area than what might otherwise be necessary for adequate storage on site. That said, we need to follow the village's stormwater requirements, of course, and that's how we've designed the stormwater basin here. So it is designed appropriately to avoid flooding on Wolf Road, but the fact of the matter is that we have a shallow outflow pipe onto under Wolf Road, and that causes this issue where we have a larger and more shallow basin that eats up more of the buildable area. If we were able to skinny up the basin and dig a little bit deeper, we would gain more net buildable area and a lower net density without removing any units. In fact, this area would be functionally the same. It would be preserved open space. In this instance, I think the proposal actually yields a better, more attractive area because we'll have a seating area and a wooded arbor overlooking the detention area. But unfortunately, this area can't be included in our area calculation for density, as we do need it to meet the stormwater requirements due to that elevation of the outflow pipe. Under its current conditions, the subject property generates about $1,000 of tax revenue per year. By virtue of developing this property, the total tax revenue will be over $1 million per year. So this only goes to show that not only are public facilities not overwhelmed by this development, but there is a net fiscal benefit to the development as well. Taking the school district as an example, though we only expect this project to generate 17 school-age students, the districts will receive a tax revenue of $423,000 and $302,000 per year, respectively. That's pretty extraordinary. If it's not approved, the property will continue to sit stagnant, undeveloped, alongside the other properties that were slated for residential uses that are immediately adjacent. We are asking you to view this project on its own merits. We feel this project is unique in that, again, we are reserving 51% of the site as open space, where density relief is usually required because there are just simply too many units proposed. Open space is usually another metric that cannot be met. We not only meet that metric, but we exceed it drastically. In addition, the setbacks and lot coverage and bulk regulations are in place to ensure development will not inhibit the use and enjoyment of other property owners. In essence, minimum setbacks and lot coverage limitations are also another means of managing density in a project. So making sure that the buildings and units are not on top of one another and squeezing every last unit that you can on site. This is not the case here. As mentioned, we're in excess of all the setbacks. We're under the maximum lot coverage allowed under the code. We do provide abundant separations and an appropriate building to yard space. You can see on the plan just how green it is and just how much open space and functionality there is in this development, and it really isn't just a sardine community. The buildings are really thoughtfully placed, separated, and they meet code and subdivision regulations. These regulations are in place, once again, to make sure a project is designed appropriately and that they're not overwhelmingly dense. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a national housing shortage. The housing market is driven by supply and demand. Though there was a construction boom during and after the pandemic, U.S. families increased by 1.8 million, while only 1.4 million homes were built. So with this yields higher price points, historically high interest rates, which prices home buyers out of the market. As a whole, we need to come closer to meeting the supply and demand. By doing this, we can make homeownership achievable again, and people don't have to resort to renting. The most recent village demographics indicate that ages 55 and up are the largest age demographic, making up 41% of the village's population. The next largest age range is the combined age range of 25 to 44, making up 23% of the population. Much of the aging population wants to downsize, but not downgrade. They've planted their roots here in Orland, and we don't want to see them leave in order to try to find a smaller home with no maintenance living. We need to encourage these residents to stay local and give them a nice new construction option close to home and their grandkids. This also makes room for the millennial home buyer who is struggling to obtain home ownership in today's market. Whether that's moving into the empty nester's house who's downsizing into a townhome, or whether that's them purchasing a townhome as their first home, the crux of the solution here is having more inventory. More inventory brings us closer to that necessary supply and demand that we need in today's housing shortage, and it will limit the number of people who need to rent instead. So in fact, we will commit to placing certain rental restrictions in our private covenants to make sure this stays a for sale community. In addition, I want to point out that the median value of the owner-occupied homes in Orland is $337,800, with an expected average sales price of $465,000. This development will only increase that median value village-wide. We understand not all proposals asking for density relief come through looking like this. We're asking you once again to view this practically and on its own merits. When staff brought a text amendment to this board last year, they supported the density calculation on a gross density basis. We acknowledge that this board did not support that text amendment, and that you'd like to review each density case on a case-by-case basis, and we certainly commend that. As noted in the staff report, staff and Plan Commission were in support of this site plan and the plat of subdivision. A huge component of the site plan and the plat of subdivision is the number of units, which should not go unnoticed. Again, going back to the beginning of the presentation, the surrounding properties have failed to develop in accordance with their intended land use, which was residential. The subject property wants to be just a little bit denser because of its location off of Wolf Road, but not too dense. Once again, we have over 51% open space. We never want to overwhelm public facilities, roads, and utilities, and I hope I've proved this evening that we will not do so. We're in excess of all setbacks, under the maximum allowable lot coverage, and again, have that extraordinary amount of open space. In addition, the development will only help provide economic growth in this otherwise underperforming area that has failed to develop over the years, and we think this project will be truly an excellent addition to Orland Park. Thank you for listening to, I know, my long presentation. As a reference, we first submitted in April of 2023, and we met with staff even in advance of that, so we've really been at this a long time. We've significantly invested in this community, and we're really, really excited and grateful for the opportunity to be here. So I want to thank staff for all their assistance to date, and I want to thank this board for your consideration. Our team is all available for questions.
Thank you for your presentation. So, Steve, could you answer this question, because I know everyone's going to ask it. What's the density allowed? What's the density?
So the density, the maximum density allowed, which they would qualify for, is 6. They're at 7.41? Yeah. 7.41, when they subtract out the pond area.
Okay. So the maximum density allowed is?
6.
6. Okay, and it's 7.41. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Board have any comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I was just wondering about the garbage removal and something that close and all that. There was something I was reading in the thing about bringing it out to the service road. And it seems like those garbage cans might be left out there, and if you're the end unit, you might have a hard time getting your neighbors to take their garbage. I mean, it seems like it's a strange situation.
I don't think that's unusual. We have that in a lot of our townhome communities, right?
Yeah, and the condition includes that it's only allowed to be out for the day of garbage collection and then has to be brought back into the garages.
That's a village ordinance. So I think a lot of our townhome communities have that. I know, Joel's shaking his head yes. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I do appreciate the effort of not making this a sardine community. Lord knows we've had other developments where we've had struggles with other developers on that. And I do want to say that this isn't about necessarily the specifics of this proposal. This village board has consistently prioritized controlled and balanced development and aligns with our character as a village and infrastructure capacity. And as you mentioned, we have a history here, right? So that back in, I think, December 2023, staff initiated a code amendment And I think that serves as a clear example of this board's position. That amendment sought to change the density calculation from net buildable acres formula to a gross acreage approach, which would have enabled higher density projects. I think we were all very vocal about how we felt about that. I know Steve still probably has some scars from that conversation. This board rejected that proposal unanimously, if I recall correctly. So reaffirming its commitment against the higher density development standards. I understand wanting to have an exception to the rule, but there's also a matter of precedent here too, right? The moment we give you an exception to the rule, the next developer is going to expect that, and they're going to use you as an example for that. So right now, I'm afraid to say I don't see enough here to treat this as an exception to overchange how we do the formula. And so I will vote to still remand this back to planning with the directive to revise density.
Any other comments? Anyone else on the board have any comments? So a couple of questions that I have on the project. So the median there in the front, I just want to make sure from staff it's going to clear the fire, just because we've seen this before where the fire didn't clear. And since I live in one.
Correct. Yeah, there was an auto turn exhibit proposed for the development.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the look of the project, all of that, I'm fine with, but I have the same issues with density. The board's been very clear about where we stand on density. I don't think that's a surprise. It's probably not a surprise to you, because I don't think the board's wavered on where we sit on that, because this is not just, so this project goes in, now we've set a precedent for density all the way down Wolf Road on both sides, then that becomes problematic for the board. So I don't think it's appropriate. It might be a little bit different if there were, if it was 90% built out to a much lower density, but we're basically setting a precedent at which we've basically already decided that we're not going to set that precedent. The other thing is that from a marketing perspective, I appreciate that you are absolutely right that people want to downsize. I can promise you they don't want to downsize to a 3-story townhouse. And I know that our realtor is going to say that. There's nobody I know my age is downsizing to something that's bigger with more stairs than what they currently have, which is so for sure. As far as the for sale community, it's not going to really have an option. It's going to be a for sale community. We have rental restrictions in place. So even in the future, no matter what you did, all you could do is get 10% of a census block, which I'm assuming is going to be 10% of the community. So, but likewise, I would send this back to the Planning Commission, and the issue's density. So, that increase of over 20% is not going to be acceptable. So, like I said, I think the board's been pretty consistent on that. And it's not that we don't like the rest of the project, we do, but it's not a precedent we're ready to set.
Vice President of Land, Lennar Homes. Offices reside at 1700 East Gulf Road, Schaumburg. Just want to make sure that the hardship was received by this board. It's due to the pipe that's underneath the main road, which is causing the pond to be double in size. So I understand, I appreciate the board does not want to set a precedence here, but if developer B were to come in, you could ask them, well, where is your open space? And you have the same hardship that this developer particularly had on this site. Just want to make sure we enter that for the record. There's a hardship here, which doubled the size of the pond, which adversely affects our density.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
was that location of that pipeline known prior to purchasing the property? I mean, at what point did you find out that this underground pipeline would have to increase the pond? So was it due during your due diligence period prior to actually owning the property? Okay, so you were aware of that when you closed on the property?
Mike Maywith, I'm the engineer for the project, so we're actually, he's close, but we're proposing a 3.2 feet of bounds meaning the vertical storage we have in the pond. That's very minimal. I was the engineer for Metro East in your village, and that was 5.5, very typical. Do often up to 6.5 feet, which this is, less than half of that. So this is a difficult spot. I'm not certain at the timing of the purchase and knowledge of that design, but we felt we had a very good design for the village before purchasing the project. Even with that hardship, we have considerable open space, so we felt it was still a very good project for the village. Much more open space than Metro East had, significantly more for a very similar type townhome project. So I would just speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, this is about half of a typical, it's using about double a typical stormwater facility required space because it's about half as much vertical storage as we get.
Thank you.
And so, just staff real quick, just doing some quick math in my head. So we're about 90 units that are allowed to have, what, 72?
Yeah, I think they would lose about 17 units,
Okay, so
give or take.
So 73. Okay, pond is 1.5. If it was half the size, it'd be 1.5, right? So that'd be 9. So it'd still be 8 over. So it's still too dense, even with the hardship. So you may have an argument there if you were meeting the density with the hardship, but you're not. You're still over that. So again, I still am in the same boat of it's too dense and needs to go back to Planning Commission. Sure. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, call the roll.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Abstain due to a business conflict.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. So that aye vote sends it back to the Planning Commission. You're welcome.
Next on the agenda, Old Orland corrugated metal pipe storm sewer replacement.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve and authorize the execution of a contractor agreement between the Village of Orland Park and PT Farrow Construction Company of Joliet, Illinois, as the lowest cost qualified responsive proposal for RFP 24-069 Old Orland corrugated metal pipe storm sewer replacement for a cost of $784,737.15 plus a contingency of $78,500 for a total not to exceed contract price of $863,237.15.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I'm reading through the information. It appears as though they may have to go through a parking lot. Is that correct, at St. Mike's?
It is correct.
So we would obviously be responsible for not putting it back together. And
Correct.
That's included in the contract, right?
Okay.
It is.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This used to be a stream there, and then they put a pipe in later on.
Okay.
We can, Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
we can coordinate scheduling for, they're not in the middle of school or,
We have.
Already.
The work would start at the last day of school.
Gotcha.
And be finished before the school starts.
Excellent.
And they have no carnival or anything planned for the summer.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Spoils Removal Services 2025-2026 Contract Award.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
Move to recommend to the village board to approve and authorize the execution of a contractor agreement between the Village of Orland Park and Matthias Trucking Incorporated of Mokina, Illinois, as the only qualified bid for ITB number 24-067 spoil removal 2025 through 2026 for 2 years, 2025 and 2026, at an amount of $90,000 for fiscal year 2025 and $90,000 for fiscal year 2026, for a total cost of $180,000, with an option to extend for 1 additional year, 2027, at a cost of $90,000, for a total not to exceed contract price of $270,000.
Second.
Any questions or comments? So we only got one qualified bidder. Are they underneath what we projected or
They on target with our budget.
right on target with budget? Okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani. Aye. Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Village's redundant water supply, completion of pump station bypass connection.
Good evening, Mayor and the board. It is a very exciting time to share when we complete a project, and it is a major project that relates to a lifeline of our village, which is our water supply. So I'll just make a quick presentation about a bypass connection that we have been working for over 3 years at our main pump station. Water is our most precious resource. So before I get into that, I just want to quickly update why water redundancy is basically prevention of a total system failure. As you know, about 2.5 years ago, we had a situation where we were very, very close to where we did not have any water available to us, and we had to juggle some things, and luckily we worked through it. So I'm not going to go through this. This has been mentioned to you before. But before I go there, I don't know why slide presentation has changed over here. There are 8 elements of, or about 10 elements of our water supply, as well as our redundancies. The green check marks that you see, those are already achieved. And the one that you see with a green check mark or with a half circle, those are in process. So regional water supply system and spur 2, that is in progress.
When is the spur 2 going to be done?
Spur 2 for us will be done later this year.
Okay.
The water supply into spur 2 is expected sometime next year.
Sometime next year?
Sometime next year.
Okay.
So we expect that water will be coming to us, I would say mid to late 2026.
So we'll have redundant water 2026.
That's the expectation or the schedule that shows up. That's how it is lining up. So today we're celebrating the completion of bypass connection at our main pump station. So as you know, we do not have a parallel redundant water system. We have many, many elements of redundant water system. This is one of those. It's an interior bypass. It still requires our main pump station because the pipes goes through there, and it is only for emergencies. So I want to show you some pictures so that you can see what we have. I'm not going to go into too much detail about its location and how it operates because it is a safety and security element for us. On the left, you see this is how it was. The blue pipe that you see at the bottom, that's the pipe that is coming in, that provides water to us, to our reservoir. And then the other pipe that you see on the top of that picture is the water distribution system. This is where we pump our water from our pump station into those pipes, which pumps water into the water towers, and that's how we get water. So our intent is that we should be able to bypass our pump station, motors in the pump station, and be able to pump water directly from Oak Lawn into our water supply, into our water towers. That basically gives us a parallel pumping station as well as a parallel reservoir. That's what the intent is.
That's in case our main pump station goes out.
Exactly. So on the right, you see that on the right side, that's the right wall, that is the wall for our reservoir. We are connecting a T connection. We have always called it a T connection. Once this T connection happens, water will be able to come from the front of the picture, comes up, turns left into the water distribution system, and then that's how it will go into. This is the completed project. You can see that what it took for us to achieve from the picture on the left to the picture on the right. That is a completed project. Quite a bit of task. One more last item that will be done later on is one of the valve, which is right now a manual valve. It will be a motorized automatic valve because Oakland wants to control the water supply when they turn it on, this emergency system or not. If for any reason we cannot do it automatically, we will be able to have an override that will help us. So that's what it looks like. Couple quick details about numbers. It costed us about $60,000 to design it. The construction cost was about $200,000. So total was $255,000. But the good news on that is we received a DCEO grant worth $180,000, and village share was about $75,000. So basically, we paid 30% of the cost. The rest of that came from a DCEO grant. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Compass.
Not so much a question, but just a thank you again to the Public Works team that, several weeks back gave us a tour of this facility. It's nice to be able to see it and now visualize exactly where this is. Impressive amount of work, and it's, water is one of those things that, we all take for granted, right? The fact that we can turn on our faucet and the water flows, and there's a great amount of effort and a team, and I think this redundancy project is critical for our village, because when it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. So thank you all for this effort.
Any other comments?
Look for a motion to adjourn.
No, it would be non-scheduled citizens.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone else, any non-scheduled citizens or visitors for public comment on items relevant to public business?
Since I don't have a sheet, you haven't signed in, please give us your name and where you live would be helpful for the record. And then also, just so everyone knows, you got 3 minutes, okay? We don't typically engage back and forth. We listen to what you have to say. Sometimes we do, but we don't necessarily. So it's not really a dialogue back and forth or a debate, but happy to hear what you have to say.
Hello, my name is Katie Safransky. I live in Oak Forest, but I am a Custom Massage Works employee here in Orland, and I would like to continue to do so in the future. I received an email that you guys are going to consider some code changes for this, and it was either your first meeting or this meeting, so I'm here to see if it would be tonight. If you guys have
There are no code changes for that right now. I think it's something that staff is working on. So.
I would like for you to consider increasing the number of licenses allowed for massage therapists to continue working here in Orland. Remember Katie for Custom Massage Works.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you for your consideration.
And just out of curiosity, Steve, when do we expect to see that, by the way? I know we're working on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a meeting or two.
Okay, great.
Sorry, was there anyone else who
Anybody
wanted to
else
speak?
there to comment? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. We're adjourned, see you in 21 minutes.